I never thought the moment that was supposed to be the peak of my pride would turn into the beginning of my deepest humiliation. After 9 long months away, I was finally coming home from another military deployment. I was exhausted, but my heart was racing at the thought that in just a few hours, I'd be holding my wife Laura and my 10-year-old daughter Emma in my arms again. On the plane, I kept picturing them running toward me at the terminal, all of us laughing, hugging, telling each other how much we had missed one another. But when I stepped into the arrivals hall, I saw only Laura. She looked stunning, wearing a beautiful dress and flawless makeup, but her eyes were different. Not warm, not teary from joy, but guilty, almost defensive. I tried to shake it off. She ran into my arms, but her embrace felt soft, empty, without the desperate grip of someone who had truly longed for me. She told me Emma was at a friend's house for a sleepover because it just happened that way. That struck me as odd. Emma knew I was coming home today, and she would have moved mountains to be here. But I didn't push it. We got into the car, and she filled the ride with small talk, never once holding my gaze. When we pulled into the driveway, I caught movement in the upstairs window, a shadow darting away. Probably the cat, I told myself, but my chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. Deep down, I knew I didn't have all the truth yet. As soon as we stepped inside, something felt off. The air was heavy, like the lingering scent of perfume that wasn't hers. I walked into the living room, scanning the space, noticing little things that didn't belong. An unfamiliar hoodie draped over the arm of the couch, a pair of men's sneakers half hidden behind the door. My mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe a neighbor stopped by. Maybe a friend dropped something off. But my gut screamed otherwise. Laura kept close behind me, talking faster than usual, asking if I wanted to shower, eat, or rest, anything to steer me away from wandering deeper into the house. Her voice had that shaky undertone, the one I'd heard only a handful of times when she was trying to hide something. I told her I wanted to see our bedroom. She froze for just a fraction of a second before forcing a smile and saying, "Of course." We climbed the stairs, and my boots seemed to pound against the hardwood louder with every step. As I reached for the doorknob, I noticed her hand twitch slightly, like she was about to grab my arm to stop me. When I opened the door, everything looked too neat. The bed was perfectly made, pillows fluffed, but the faint indentation on the far side told me someone had been lying there recently. My mind was racing, my pulse thundering in my ears. That's when I caught it. The faint creak of the floorboards from the closet. Someone was in there. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob, staring at the closet door like it was a live grenade. My breathing slowed, every muscle in my body tightening as the sound came again, soft, deliberate, like someone shifting their weight. Laura's voice cut through the air, shaky and rushed. "Babe, just please, let's not—" But I didn't let her finish. I stepped forward, my boots thudding against the floor, each step making her flinch. I reached for the closet handle and yanked it open. The smell hit me first. Sweat, cologne, and the unmistakable scent of fear. A man stood there, half-dressed, his shirt unbuttoned, jeans undone, his eyes wide like a trapped animal. He wasn't a stranger. He was Kyle, my supposed friend, a guy who had been in my house dozens of times, who had eaten at my table, laughed with my kid, and once even told me he looked out for Laura while I was deployed. My vision tunneled, and for a moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. "You don't know all the truth," Laura said quietly, her voice breaking, tears welling up, but not from guilt, more like fear of what would happen next. I turned to her slowly, my jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Then tell me," I said, my voice low and shaking. She looked at Kyle, then at the floor. and whispered, "It wasn't just him." That sentence punched the air right out of my lungs. My hands curled into fists, the rage building so fast I could barely contain it. I took a step toward Kyle, and he instinctively put his hands up, muttering something about, "It's not what you think," which made my blood boil even more. I wanted to hit him, to make him feel every ounce of betrayal coursing through my veins, but I forced myself to stand still, my eyes locked on Laura. "How many?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but carrying the weight of a sledgehammer. She hesitated, lips trembling, then finally said, "You don't want to know." That was the moment I realized my marriage, my home, my trust, it was already gone. The silence in that room was suffocating, but inside my head there was nothing but chaos. I stared at her, every muscle in my body trembling, not from fear, but from trying to hold back the storm building inside me. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out every other sound except her shaky breathing and the faint shuffle of Kyle, trying to edge toward the door. "Sit down," I said, my voice cold and unfamiliar even to me. Neither of them moved. "Sit down." This time, my tone left no room for argument. Laura sat on the edge of the bed like a prisoner awaiting sentence, while Kyle just stood there, glancing between us like a man deciding whether to run for his life. My eyes locked on her again. "How many, Laura?" She closed her eyes, as if she could just will this conversation away, and whispered, "Since you came back, or since you left?" That question felt like a knife twisting in my gut. "All of it," I said. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. "While you were deployed the first time, there was a neighbor. You met him once. It just happened. Then after that, it was Kyle. And a few months before you came back, there was another guy from work." My chest felt tight, like someone was crushing it with their hands. "A few months ago, I saw someone else again. It's been bad between us for a long time," she said, her words dripping with justification I didn't ask for. I shook my head slowly. "You had years to tell me. Instead, you smiled in my face, slept in my bed, and let me think I was the only one." She winced at every word, but not enough to stop her from looking me dead in the eye and saying, "You don't know what it was like being here alone. With you gone all the time, with nothing." I slammed my hand down on the dresser, the sound making both of them jump. "Don't you dare blame this on my service," I growled. "I bled for this country so you could have a life, so you could feel safe, and this is what you did with it." Kyle took that moment to step toward the door. "You're not going anywhere," I snapped, my eyes locking on him. "You came into my home, into my marriage, and you're going to stand there and hear every damn word." His face went pale, but he stayed. My whole body was shaking now, not because I didn't know what to do, but because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And the only thing stopping me was knowing that once I crossed that line, there was no going back. I looked at Laura, the woman I had loved since I was 20, the mother of my child, and all I could see was a stranger. "You've destroyed everything," I said, my voice breaking. She didn't say anything, just stared down at the floor. And in that silence, I realized the truth. This wasn't just betrayal. This was the death of us, and she'd buried the body long before I found out. I walked out of that room without another word, but the rage inside me didn't fade. It settled, cold and heavy, like ice in my veins. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture, every smell in that house suddenly felt foreign, tainted. I went to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the floor for what felt like hours. My hands were still shaking, and my mind was a hurricane of images. Her smile when I came home from deployment, the way she'd kiss me at the airport, the way she'd hold our son in her arms. And now,
Knowing that behind those moments were lies, it made me feel sick. Laura came into the room, Kyle trailing behind her like a shadow, his head down. "I think you should go," she said to him quietly, but I cut her off. "No, he stays until I'm done." My voice was low, but sharp enough to cut glass. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore, but the truth was, I didn't recognize myself either. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and started scrolling through pictures, messages, anything to piece together how far back this went. The more I saw, the deeper the knife twisted. Messages from months ago, selfies she sent him from our bedroom, photos of them together at places she told me she'd gone alone. Kyle shifted uncomfortably, mumbling something about not wanting trouble. "Too late for that," I said, shoving the phone toward him so he could see his own face smirking back from my screen. I walked to the kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept the keys, and pulled out the set for her car. I tossed them at her feet. "Get in it, take him, drive, and don't come back." She stared at me, shocked. "Where am I supposed to—" "Not my problem," I said, my voice cracking under the weight of what I was doing. "I don't care if you stay in a motel, or with him, or under a bridge. You don't live here anymore." She tried to say something, but I turned away, my chest burning. The door slammed behind them a minute later, and the house went quiet. Too quiet. I stood there for a long time, letting it sink in. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with had been gone for years, replaced by someone I didn't know. And now, I was truly alone. But there was something else too. A strange, almost guilty sense of relief. Because at least now, I knew the truth. At least now, the lies were over. And as much as it hurt, as much as it hollowed me out, I could finally start to rebuild without her shadow hanging over me.